Hi, this is Kevin Lawler, and you're listening to Live and in Color with Wolfie D.
Hey, this is Jimmy Street, host of the Live and in Color with Wolfie D podcast. Hear the life and times of professional wrestler Wolfie D. From his time in the territories with PG-13 to his time in WWE, ECW, WCW, TNA, and more. Nothing is off limits and nothing will be held back. Thanks again for tuning in. Here he is, Wolfie D.
Welcome once again, ladies and gentlemen. It's the Live and in Color with Wolfie D podcast, and I got myself and Jimmy across the street. Jimmy the Iron Sheik just died, man.
I know, dude. It's so sad. Really, I mean, you know what's funny is a lot of people were like, hey, man, it'd be great if you could get Sheiky on the show, but... You know, and obviously we would have loved to have had the Iron Sheik on the freaking show, you know, but man, when I saw that little A&E biography about him, I could tell he wasn't great. Yeah. And, you know, but God bless the Iron Sheik, man. What a just legend, you know?
Yeah, man. I mean,
Bubba.
It goes back to the cartoon, man. I mean, him and Roddy Piper were kind of the OG heels of the 80s that, you know,
dude,
got it rocking and rolling, you know what I mean?
Absolutely, man. Those guys were the heels, you know, and, you know, of course you had Ric Flair and stuff, but what I'm talking about as far as like the guys that you just thought about as total heels, and Iron Sheik in that Goonies, I mean, it's what the Goonies are good enough by Cyndi Lauper, that music video, he's in it with, man, just never going to be another one like him. I don't think they could be anyway, but what I'm saying is with the world as it is, never going to be another Iron Sheik, man.
No, I still wonder, man, like, you know, all the stuff at the end where he got famous for, you know, the crazy shit that he would say on the shoot interviews and on the internet. I mean, I wonder how much was he working, and I think a lot of it was.
Oh yeah,
became like a internet character, basically caricature of him.
Yeah,
but it worked. You know.
Yeah.
Out of the ring, he was still working, man. Yeah, man, it's just one of those people you think about, along with the Randy Savages and the, you know, the ones that are gone that made your childhood, man. I wish I would have had more interaction with him. I think really the only funny of the story was when I was first in WWE. Yeah, we was in the dressing room, everybody's changing after the show and all that kind of stuff. He's got a towel on and he's got his suitcase open. And I mean, he's bald headed and he pulls out this fucking hair dryer. And he looks over at me with that big smile, shaking his head like, yeah. And then he like starts blow drying his mustache with a little compliment. It was just like he was looking at me like, this is funny, right? Huh? You know?
That's awesome. Oh man. You know, the way he would work that mustache too, dude, I'm sure seeing it in real life at the time was amazing because, like, you know, that's his gimmick, man. That mustache was, and watching him twist it and like, oh damn.
Yeah.
Man, it's crazy because I was, you know, Tom Pritchard, our former guest, posted a picture of him and it was a very young Tom and a very, you know, young Iron Sheik. And Iron Sheik actually had like a long handlebar, like almost a Fu Manchu coming off. Dude, he's legendary on the facial hair too. But as you know, that story he told, I'm so glad I asked that question because I almost didn't, asking about, you know, Sheiky training Tom and, you know, scream.
Yeah, that's good, man. And before we get on to the show, get to the break and have Kevin on, it's Kevin Lawler today, which is going to be fun. I do want to just update everybody. You know, we talked with the headbangers about the colonoscopy and getting checked and all that kind of stuff. And the polyps that I had removed were benign. I found that out yesterday, so that's a good thing. And we won't talk about my ass no more, but...
Well, I'm glad your ass or your Wolfie D or whatever. I'm glad everything is good, man. Really, you know, had a lot of people praying for you, brother. So that's awesome, you know.
Appreciate that from all of them. So anyway, let's take a break and let's come back and talk to Kevin Lawler.
All right. Be right back after these messages.
With threats to our nation waiting around every corner, adaptability is more important than ever. When conditions change without notice, quick strategic thinking is crucial, and with obstacles consistently impending, determination is essential in overcoming them. It's this willingness, decisiveness, and resilience that sets Marines apart. With our fighting spirit, we don't just fight battles, we win them. Marines are the constant our nation counts on to fight the unknown. And through adaptable problem solving, we do just that. Learn more at marines.com.
Hey folks, to get your official Live It in Color with Wolfie D merchandise, go to prowrestlingtees.com/live Wolfie D. Check it out.
If you're listening to Live and in Color with Wolfie D on Apple Podcast and like what you're hearing, go ahead and leave a 5-star rating. And while you're at it, write a review. Tell us what you liked. Tell us what you'd like to hear in the future. It's very important to us and always appreciated. Thanks again.
All right, guys, we're back. And as promised, man, we got a very cool guest today, as we always have cool guests. But known Kevin for, since probably, 93, Kevin Lawler coming on the show now?
Yeah, I believe so. Because that's when you guys, I guess, first started.
Yeah, that was when we first started in Memphis, and I never forget.
But it must have been early, because like I left in like May of '93 and moved to Philadelphia to do the ECW thing. So y'all, and I remember y'all being around for a while before I went and did that.
February, so it was a few months, and one thing I remember is that picture, and I don't know if I still got it. I'm pretty sure I do. But that picture you drew of me and Jamie that I thought was really, really cool. I don't know if you remember that one or not, but that was one of our first.
I really don't.
It's a really cool picture. But man, anyway, and I just want you to know, and I want the listeners to know, man, I want to ask you, how's your dad doing? We'll talk about that in just a second, but I do want to say, man, this show's for you, man. I don't want people to think we're going to come on here and talk about your dad and Brian the whole time. We're going to touch on some of that, but this show's for you, man. So, that's
good.
Yeah.
It's crazy because, when this is actually recording, I think is actually like 4 months to the day, on the exact day, when he had that stroke back in February.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, I mean, he's doing good. I mean, he can pretty much do whatever. I mean, he can get out and drive, and, he gets around and does a lot of stuff. As a matter of fact, just this past Thursday, they had a big award ceremony where he got presented this big trophy. It's kind of like I forgot what it was called. Something, just some kind of like an outstanding citizen
I saw
award.
Yeah, it's very cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, he's, not really getting out and doing, these conventions and things and that kind of stuff, because right now with the travel and everything like that. But as far as just, doing his thing, I mean, he's doing good.
Yeah, cool. That's good to hear.
Wolfie was like, when all that stuff first happened, and I was down there with my dad in Florida, like one of the first times that I got to go, because Wolfie was one of the first guys that kind of was reaching out to me and calling and texting and wanting to check and see how my dad was doing. He was one of the first guys that I called and actually let it put him on the phone with my dad and let him get to just say a few little words to him when he was, kind of limited on his speech and stuff, in the beginning.
That's awesome. Yeah.
That was cool, man. And it was good I appreciate you did that. He's always been good to me, man. You know how in the business, man, there was Jerry Jarrett guys, there was Jerry Lawler guys. I kind of feel like I was both, you know what I mean? And that's
right.
Me, very cool to me. Man, let's talk about Memphis down there, man. It's like ever since USWA's gone out of business, man, and for the ones that don't know, Kevin does do a lot of promoting. And any show that I've been on that Kevin ran was very professional, got paid good, and he always drew well. And so what do you think's going on? It's like everybody down in Memphis seems to be fighting over one little crumb or something, It's like, why can't Memphis draw again and have a regular wrestling show that they know?
Well, I mean, really, it's a combination of things, but probably the main thing is the fact that just the times have changed so much, with social media and everything. A Saturday morning television show is just not what it used to be. I would love to have one. I mean, it's cool to have just for bragging rights. And, any exposure is better than none. I mean, it's always just something extra to have, but it's just not like it used to be. I mean, people, especially kids, just number one, probably aren't even aware that those channels even exist that far down on the guide, to be like, and they're probably not even watching TV on a Saturday morning,
right.
And that kind of stuff, so for, people to want to try to, have a TV show and be a Saturday morning TV show, it's just not like it was. I mean, man, when I was a kid coming up on a Saturday morning, for the longest, all we had was Memphis. And then once kind of cable and some other, stuff started kicking in, then on a Saturday morning, we could watch, NWA, Memphis, Mid-South, World Class, WWF, all that stuff. And then later in the afternoon, NWA would come back on at like 6 o'clock. It was like, man, there was just so much wrestling. And that's just what people was accustomed to back then. And now they're accustomed to like Monday nights or whenever.
Right.
But, that's the biggest thing is, number one, just, there was such a gap in between when there was a regular, consistent Saturday morning show to now that it's became out of sight, out of mind. And then just the quality of the talent is just not there, and that's really one of the biggest parts. I mean, so many of the guys nowadays, not just around here, but in so many places, they all look like kids. They all look like they're 14 years old, opposed to like back in the day, Dutch Mantell looked like a grown man. The Fabs looked like grown men. Austin Idol, Jimmy Van, all these guys look like grown men, to where like now everybody just looks like kids almost,
Totally.
I agree with that 100%. And then you're right, man, because you know what? I can't say that there's anything that I watch like, okay, I know this comes on at such and such a time, and I'm going to turn the TV on at that time and watch it, with the exception of like NFL or something like that, you need to watch right then. But like a show, I'm streaming everything. And,
Oh, yeah. And just, watching it at your convenience,
Yeah. So
whenever.
that time you were talking about, it doesn't really matter. And I mean, you're right. It just doesn't really matter that, the nostalgia of Saturday morning wrestling, I don't think is as a drawing point anymore, as a selling point anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so let's talk about the Backyard Wrestling League that you and Brian and who else? Tony Williams and
Tony Williams was in it. As far as anybody that ever.
So let's prompt the people real quick that don't know that Brian Christopher, his brother, and Kevin and a couple other guys in the neighborhood, y'all had a ring, right? Or did you do it on the ground? I can't remember.
No, I mean, the origins of it was, before there was ever a ring or even backyard, it was in the house. It was done like in the living room, of our house, and just a couple other friends. And it kind of started off as like, as soon as like somebody's, mom or somebody would go to the grocery store or go to work, it's like you'd get on the phone, hey, our mom's gone, everybody come over. And it kind of started like that. And then all of a sudden this was like kind of the dawning of the age when people started getting camcorders, So then once, one of the kids in the neighborhood got a camcorder, then we actually could like start making our own shows, to where, the living room or the den would technically be the ring. If you had a couch and a love seat that kind of made an L shape, well, those were ropes, and then another wall would be ropes and things like that, and a lot of us, this also was like in the 80s where you could go to, when, all the rock bands were wearing like spandex. So there was a lot of stores that would sell spandex tights. So, we could get some tights here and there, or just some other little outfits and things like that. So, I mean, everybody had characters, everybody had gimmicks. Everybody actually had like, 5 or 6 different gimmicks, you just come out and do stuff. We had music and all that. And then, once we got a little bit older, we did discover, I don't know if you really remember him or not, but this one guy, David Webb, who used to kind of do some ring announcing with Memphis for a while. And he had went down and did some stuff in Global and all that. Mm-hmm. But he used to train with Don Bass, him and another guy, and he actually had a ring in his backyard. And once we discovered that there was actually a ring that we could go to, then wrestling in the house was done. We were done with that, because now we had an actual ring that we could go to.
That's awesome.
And then,
another thing was kind of crazy is that, we were thinking that we were the only ones doing this. And then, you remember Scott Bowden, right? Like he actually went to the same high school with Tony Williams. And once we kind of, met him and discovered that he had his own little, neighborhood wrestling organization going on also, where him and a few of his friends like wrestled in the house and things like that. So, but, we never got to really do any of that kind of stuff together. But Scott Bowden was like another guy that, eventually that we got him in because he kind of halfway right there towards the end kind of grew up with us to a degree and stuff like that.
And here's what I was kind of getting at with that, and talking about how y'all used to do that. Because I think it was me and Jimmy that were talking about this the other day. It came up, and we're like, has Jerry Lawler ever actually trained a wrestler? And so, I know he didn't train you and Brian, did it? You kind of trained yourselves, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. I mean, we just kind of were self-taught by just goofing off and doing that stuff in the house, and cutting promos, on these little videos that we would do and things like that. But it was almost kind of like, there was really no actual training. We just kind of did the stuff, and then eventually, ran into, kind of like met the Snowman and found out that, he was a part of a group that was doing some little outlaw shows around Memphis, and got on one of those shows and got Brian and Tony on one of those shows too. And
how was your dad? Was he okay with that, or did it piss him off?
Man, I want to think that, I think that was like right before the whole Snowman thing, before Snowman even came in, so in the beginning, he wasn't hot because of the Snowman thing. He was just hot because, it was considered like an outlaw promotion, and here we were like guys who, weren't even in the business, weren't trained, weren't nothing. Right. And, we went and did one of these shows, but it was, and Brian and Tony wrestled each other, and they took the tape to my dad and showed him their match. And that's basically what, had him see that, hey, these guys, kind of older enough now, big enough now, and they look like they know what they're doing to where we can at least make them,
I would love to have been there to see. Did he put it over? Like, did he watch it and go, oh, y'all ain't bad? It's hard for me to see him doing that. I could see him rolling doing that face.
Well, yeah, because I remember when I took a tape over there to show him like a match with me and somebody, and I'm sitting there thinking that he's going to put it over real big, and he just sat there and watched it, and then he looked at me and said, like, why are you showing me this? Like, when am I supposed to be watching this for? They just totally buried it, totally made me like, oh, well, I don't know. I just thought you might see it. I'm not really sure how he did with Brian Tony. I mean, I think he probably just, how they can, it's like almost like that backhanded compliment where they'll, put it over without putting it over, because it's like, I'm kind of like a good example is I remember one time, you remember our friend, Mr. Clyde.
Yeah.
Ollie ate all the bacon and Ollie been kind of guy.
Yeah.
But I remember one time, he was doing the jobs on Saturday mornings, and then, thought he had a pretty decent match, and he came to the back and he asked Eddie Martin, he said, Eddie, did you see my match? He said, yeah. He said, how was it? And he said, it wasn't as terrible as it normally is. So that was his way of putting it over, Yeah.
And hey, you know what, man? We were talking with the Headbangers last week, and this came up. The culture of Memphis is weird, okay? And we'll elaborate on this, but what I mean by that is people will not put you over. So that's what I was groomed for. That's all I knew that existed in the wrestling world was the Memphis locker room. And that was, you come back, somebody, be like, well, that was the shits. Even if it was good, just to fuck with you, just whatever. Nobody would ever put anything over. And then I go to ECW and WCW. I remember the most is guys. We came back from WCW one time, came through the curtain, everybody stand up clapping and shit. I'm like, is this a fucking rib? Are they making fools of us right now? Because I wasn't used to that, man. But it's a culture of Memphis, man. It's like that. Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I guess it's just, so, kind of competitive in a way, but I don't know. It's just, it's hard to explain, But it's just, it's almost kind of like even just trying to explain the business to somebody who's never been around the business. It's like, you just know it. You just get it. You just understand it by being around those guys. But I guess the biggest way to really know, if it's legit or not is if they really didn't like something, they would cuss you out. But if they, was okay with it, they would just knock it,
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's about right.
So I want to add a little something. When we posted our episode that we said that, did Jerry Lawler ever train anyone? A listener, Mac A. Ronan, aka at Hizudi Mizark on Twitter, posted that he thought he trained Jerry Bryant. So not 100% sure, but says...
I really don't know, but I mean, I have heard a few stories, even almost like say with like Jerry Calhoun or somebody. Sure. That I think sometimes in some of those cases, like the extent of the training would maybe be like he would take somebody out in the backyard or something and say, hey, and just, would show them how to fall, like maybe slam them down a couple of times. And if they could take it, on the hard ground, then they was okay. But, it was never just, like what you would expect from like actual, wrestling school. It would basically, hey, let me just show you a couple of things, real simple, real basic. And then from that point on, I mean, same way, even like when I first ever started refereeing, I was never even trained for that. It was just my dad called me one day and said, hey, can you go to this town tonight and referee? And I was like, yeah, I had never done it before ever in my life. So I was having to just do it on the fly that first night, in the ring with all these guys, and just scared to death, and just, but they're basically, I mean, I had watched enough, I haven't seen enough of it to know how to do it, the pantomime part of it, but didn't really know kind of, where to be and what to do and this and that. And they're just, they're kind of, how they would do their thing. The old deal, like, hey, don't go tell him to grab my leg, you got to go and say, hey, don't grab me. Then they know to grab the leg, all that kind of stuff. And
that's awesome.
Hey, I was going to say, speaking of Jerry Calhoun, I listened to the episode the time he was on here, and I know he kind of briefed over, but I don't know if you guys had really caught it or whatever, but that there was just like a brief few little years where he was like technically Brian and mine's, uncle. He was married to our mother's sister, so like, and I think they got divorced when we were probably like, God, maybe like, 3 and 4 years old or something like that, so just the first few years of our life, he was our uncle.
Yeah.
And we used to call him Uncle Nose. That was his nickname, was Uncle Nose, because when, he has the big nose already, but when you're like a little kid, how you see everything's in a whole different perspective. And I just remember, like, anytime we was around him, it just seemed like it was just this big, huge nose, coming at you. So we called him Uncle Nose.
That's hilarious.
Oh, man.
And hey, Jimmy, we made Kevin hot because when we did that episode with Jerry Calhoun and we were naming off Memphis referees and stuff, we did not include Kevin. And I told Kevin that he mentioned this to me a few months ago, I think it was. And I think the reason I didn't really think of you as that because it's like I see you more as the promoter person now, and also because I wrestled you when you were doing the Bumblebee thing. So I think that's my excuse. I don't know what Jimmy's is, but that's mine.
My excuse was that, what do you mean me, paleface? I'm just kidding. Anyway, so I'm sorry, Kevin. So my question, and I think I want to, I try to represent the listener here, and it's got to be you've probably answered this a million times, but I mean, honestly, and I want this from your perspective, like you growing up. So how was it growing up as the son of like the greatest wrestler of all time, basically?
I mean, it's weird because it's one of those things where it's hard to say because that's all you knew. It'd be different, I think, maybe like if my dad was my stepdad and all of a sudden like I'm 10 or 11 years old and my mother marries this guy, then that you could have something to kind of compare it to and it'd be something different. But, that's all we really knew, any of us guys whose father was a wrestler,
Sure.
And, and my mother and father, they got divorced, when I was probably 4 years old or something like that, so those first few years, were just kind of flashes of, us all being together, moving around and having to live in Florida or having to live in Atlanta and, Hendersonville and things like that. So, and with my dad being gone so much, just like all the kids, it's like, we saw our fathers more on TV than we saw them at home or in real life. So in a way, we were just as much, watching these shows as everybody else that was watching. We were seeing, even though that was our father, we were seeing him as a fan or as that character, that guy on TV, just like everybody else. But at the same time, that's our dad, so it was always kind of a weird dynamic when we would get to go see him or be around him, because it in a way, it was like being around two people, any kid whose parents are divorced, anytime you get to go and be with, say, your father or whatever, it's always going to be something exciting and special because that's your dad and you hardly ever see him. But in this case, it's like, hey, we're getting to hang around with our dad and this guy that we see on TV at the same time, so it's kind of extra kind of cool, on one hand. And, but at the same time, I mean, I hear some of these stories from guys like Jamie and some of these other guys that, they just moved around and traveled around so much because their dads would work different territories. But in our case, since our dad was pretty much here all the time, and since, our parents had got divorced, we were pretty much, stayed put in Memphis. So we really had, a very, very normal childhood. I mean, we were no different than any of the other kids in the neighborhood. We didn't have anything elaborate. We didn't have any all the extra, cool stuff that none of the other kids had. I mean, in a lot of cases, they had more than us,
Sure.
And, so, and all of our other, family members, everybody was just so down to earth and so normal, to where we just had this really normal life and normal childhood, other than the fact that our dad was this guy, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, ours was a little different than, like I said, hearing some of these stories of guys like Jamie and them and stuff like that. There was, and it's also kind of weird because you would think that, naturally, I guess probably a lot of people probably just assume that all the wrestlers' kids, or just grow up around each other and they're always around each other. And in our case, it wasn't like that. I remember when, we was really, really young and we lived in Hendersonville. Brian was already in kindergarten. I wasn't even in kindergarten yet. And, I remember there would be a few times that we would have to go over, like our mom and dad and Bill and Jamie's mom would go out and do something, which is hard to believe that, my dad and Bill would actually hang out and do something or whatever, And, but I just remember a couple of times maybe them going out to dinner or doing something, and we would go over there, just me and Brian and Jamie's older sister would babysit us. We'd be around them a couple of times. Yeah. But then it's like, that was when I'm like maybe 2 or 3 years old. And then I don't ever even see Jamie ever again until like, the early 90s when he comes back, so I'm just never around him. There would even be times we would go to Jerry Jarrett's house, for little things or something like that. And I just maybe remember like one time ever seeing like Jeff Jarrett when he was maybe 10 or something, jumping on a trampoline, and then never seeing Jeff ever again until, he starts, refereeing and wrestling or something like that.
Besides like Calhoun and stuff, then who were the like wrestlers that came over to your house in Memphis, or was there just none? Is it just that? Just seeing everybody every once in a while?
Well, no, there was a couple of times, but
your dad didn't really hang out with any of the guys. Obviously kayfabe, he's not.
Yeah, kayfabe. It was like really strict back then, because there was a lot of times where like on a Monday night, me and Brian would, when we were kids, we would go to the matches, and we would have to, go and find Mr. Coffee and say, hey, we wanted to go back there and see our dad, say him, and he'd have to go back there and get, make sure everything, coast was clear and everything was good. So then when they would bring us back there, sometimes you might could see like a heel, like kind of peeking around the corner or something, just to, like it wasn't like everybody just walking around like it is now. It's like, everybody was just, the heels would be on one side, babyface on the other, just kind of peek, and we'd go, there are things that we never saw any of this mixing and mingling of guys hanging out or nothing when we would go back there and sit. And then sometimes, you know, we would get to go to like Nashville, you know, and, you know, just be sitting in the babyface dressing room with everybody. And that was like, just would blow your mind to be like a little kid and you're sitting in the dressing room. There's the Fabs and Jerry Lawler and Billy D and whoever, you know, because you know how tiny the Nashville dressing rooms was, you know, and of course there was no mixing and mingling, you know, because they were on complete opposite sides of the building with each other. But and you know, like I said, with us not growing up, you know, with our dad, you know, nobody ever came to our house, but I just only remember like a couple of times. I remember, you know, I mean, every so often, you know, we'd go spend the night at my dad's or something like that. And I remember one time being at his house and Jimmy Valiant being over there and like, you know, just sitting up on his lap and looking down, seeing like his fingernails painted like glittery silver, you know, and stuff like that. And I remember, you know, Austin Idol being over there one time, but that's like the only time that I remember seeing, you know, guys over at the house. I mean, every now and then if we would get to, sometimes if we go spend the night at my dad's or something like that, and it was always the coolest if we went and spent the night and would get to luck up and go, you know, with him to like a spot show or something, you know, if he was over there like on a Friday or Saturday night and we'd get to ride with him to a spot show. Cause usually, you know, 9 times out of 10, like Calhoun would be in the car with us, or every now and then, like, you know, Coco Ware, and, you know, sometimes there'd just be like 2 or 3 of the guys in the car, you know, plus us, you know, and stuff like that. So that was always kind of cool to get to just, you know, make some of these trips with some of those guys too and everything.
Yeah. That's awesome. You know, you kind of were like dancing around it a little bit there, Kevin, but when we had Jamie on the show, you know, Jamie's a mile a minute and he was telling stories, and there was a story that came up about Jackie Fargo and Christmas.
Man, the greatest story I got on that is as I was reminded my whole entire life running around with Brian Christopher that the Dundees ruined the Lawlers' Christmas. In 1975, Jackie Fargo played Santa Claus, and I would never forget it. I ran up to him with the milk and cookies when he came in. He had the beard on and the outfit, and I ran up and I give him them milk and cookies, and he pulled that beard down. He said, "Pally, Santa wants whiskey, boy." And I ran back. I said, "Daddy, Santa wants whiskey." And so we got Santa a whole bunch of whiskey, and Santa got tore plumb up. And by the time he got to the Lawler's house, he knocked the Christmas tree over, fucking broke the toys. He started at Jarrett's, went to ours, and then off to the fucking Lawler's. And by the time because that was when Jerry lived in Hendersonville, and by the time old Fargo got to friggin' Pally's house, baby, it was on. He knocked the tree over, broke all the gifts, and Brian Christopher reminded me of that every year at Christmas. He'd say, "You ruined my fucking Christmas my whole life." Santa ruined it, not me.
And so I posted that, and I made a little video of it. And then you sent us an image of you, Brian, and Jackie in the image.
Yeah, together. Where Jackie was dressed as Santa Claus.
So I need to hear your story of this. I know you were young, but...
Yeah, I mean, I was really young. I mean, again, I mean, I just, my recollection of it is not, you know, as good as probably Brian or Jamie's. Because like, you know, Brian's, they remember, you know, like, you know, and I remember Jackie being drunk and all that kind of stuff, you know, and he had some girl with him, and, you know, they tell a story of him like breaking some of our toys, which I don't really remember that. I just remember him coming over, and I just remember them doing the gimmick where, you know, our dad came and said, "Hey," you know, they had somebody outside the windows, like jingling the bells and waking us up and making us think that Santa Claus was coming and everything.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he comes in the house, you know, and there's Santa Claus. And of course, you know, when you're like, you know, 3 and 4 years old, you're thinking this is like the real Santa Claus. And I just remember him, you know, and I had no idea that it was Jackie at the time. I just remember, even though he's saying, "Hey, Pally," and all that kind of stuff, he's doing, he's just typical Jackie Fargo with the Santa suit on, you know, but, you know, at the time I'm not even thinking about it, you know, it's just, your mind's blown because it's Santa Claus in your house on Christmas Eve, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
And I just remember here, I mean, I just remember it. Just had like this vague memory of like, you know, him being there and him being Santa Claus and just a few of the toys that we got that year and things like that. But I guess, you know, the way Jamie talks is apparently, I guess he went to our house and Jamie's house and Jeff Jarrett's house and stuff like that. Kind of made the rounds, and I guess maybe we were the last one, so he was pretty lit by the time he got to our house.
Danny wants some whiskey.
What do you call that? Do the bar crawl? That's kind of
the bar crawl, the house crawl. Yeah, he came there last because he probably knew there wasn't whiskey there, you know. So
right. Yeah, he knew that he was gonna get actual milk and cookies at our house.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I guess, you know, this is kind of an off-kilter question, but I know it's important to your pops, but what's your favorite superhero?
Man, you know, I always was a big Superman fan, you know, too, growing up, you know, because when I was growing up, that's when, you know, even though it was in reruns, but man, it's like, you know, I'd, you know, come home from school, you know, at 3:00 and, you know, the old black and white, you know, and also with, you know, the color version of the old Superman show would come on.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, I remember like, this was like when I was in kindergarten and Brian was in first grade, and we lived in this apartments, like these townhouses, and we would have to ride the bus to school. And then when the bus would bring us back, it's like, we had to make this huge loop all the way around, you know, the complex. And then like where they dropped us off was like the last stop. And me and Brian would always kind of fight her, because that's back when, you know, heck, you know, we still had a black and white TV, you know, and, you know, Brian liked to watch that old Spider-Man cartoon that used to come on like back in the day, you know, and like Spider-Man cartoon and Superman would both come on, you know, like at the same time. Yeah. And we both wanted to be able to watch, you know, the one that we wanted, like on the big color TV, you know? And so it's like whoever could get to the TV first kind of got dibs. And then the other guy would have to go and watch his show on the black and white. And so I just remember kind of discovering the fact that I could go ahead and get off the bus at the first stop when they were letting all the kids off, because it was kind of really like right where our spot was, but then it just made a loop. So I would kind of sneak and get off when the first round of kids would get off. And so by the time the bus made it around and Brian got dropped off, I was already inside watching, you know, Superman on the big color TV.
That's awesome. Okay, well then, what's your favorite superhero movie?
It got to be a Marvel one.
There's some pretty dope Superman movies. So
I mean, this isn't my favorite, but you know, I actually just popped into my head is that, man, I think that Daredevil movie that Ben Affleck did was a lot cooler than people actually give it credit for, you know?
The director's cut was very good, actually. Yeah, you're right.
The series was better than the movie, though. The series was really good on Netflix.
It was.
Yeah, I never saw that, but
you should.
Man, I don't know. That's hard to say.
Okay.
Did you kind of grow up drawing stuff off of comic books and superheroes like I did?
Yeah. I mean, but you know, also mine was, you know, I grew up, you know, seeing my dad draw, and I, you know, inherited, so I could draw too. But I just remember, like, I remember one time, you know, again, this is when we lived in Hendersonville, and I'm, you know, 3 years old or whatever, and my dad drew, you know, on the wall, you know, he drew and painted like, you know, Iron Man's face and Spider-Man's face and Captain America, like, you know, just drew these faces and, you know, would draw a few things on the wall, you know, and paint them. And it was like really cool, like on our bedroom wall. And, you know, I didn't know the difference. I just saw him doing it and thought it was okay to do it. So I think I had got some crayons, some art, something, and, you know, was no kind of an artist at the time, but just drew some crap on the wall, and that didn't get over, you know, good at all. That I had ruined this wall that he had drawn all this stuff on by me trying to copy him. In the same way, like, you know, there's that real famous drawing that he did that's like, you know, Jerry Jarrett and Tojo and Jackie Fargo, you know, that one real famous drawing that he did of those guys. And I remember, you know, him working on that thing forever, you know, sitting at this table and he was working on it. And I guess he was, you know, out of town wrestling somewhere. And I was, you know, been sitting there watching him do it and doing it. And I had taken like a pen, you know, how when you click the thing and it makes the part come out with ink, but if you don't click it, it just does. And I was just kind of tracing over it with that thing. And man, when he came home and saw like these grooves all over the thing, it was brutal.
Man, yeah.
You know,
Needless to say,
like this massive work of art that he had made, you know, and I'm just like, you know, trying to copy off what I saw him doing, you know.
I bet he was pissed.
Oh, that's to put it mildly.
He pulled the strap on you for sure.
Yeah, big time.
That is,
man. And you know, we were talking about Jackie Fargo, and man, I saw on social media, I don't know if either one of you saw this, but I just want to throw this out there to the listeners and everything. I think there's a GoFundMe now, but if this is true, I think it was Bobby Fulton's son that posted this, that Jackie's grave and his wife's grave do not have headstones on them. They're just there in the ground, and there was a picture of it. And I think they started GoFundMe for it, but that just seems... I mean, I know a lot of wrestlers have died broke and stuff, but that's Jackie Fargo, and I can't believe somebody hadn't taken care of that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, that just seems like something that my dad would have done or whatever. I'll have to ask him about it and everything. You know, because his daughter Charlotte, you know, she's never ever mentioned anything about that to me that I can remember. But on the subject of Jackie, I was just going to say, man, Jackie, talking about, man, I'll tell you who Jackie's favorite, and I wouldn't even call this person even a superhero, but, you know, he was kind of like, you know, they did a lot of comics of this guy, and this was like Jackie's favorite, you know, comic book character. And anytime I was ever around Jackie, sometimes we, like, you know, when we go to Nashville or something like that, my mom would take us by Jackie's and just visit. And anytime we'd go there, Jackie would always get out some paper and pencil or something. He would always want me to draw this character for him. Jackie's favorite character was Sergeant Rock. You remember the Sergeant Rock character?
Absolutely.
This was Jackie Fargo's favorite guy. You know, he would always want me to draw Sergeant Rock anytime I ever was around him.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Let's take a quick time out and get a word from one of my dope-ass sponsors, and we'll be right back with more Live and in Color with Wolfie D.
Support for Live and in Color with Wolfie D is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped recently launched the Ultimate Men's Hygiene Bundle, the Performance Package. Join over 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you. 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code WOLFIE at manscaped.com. If my math's correct, that's about 8 million balls.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
Getting engaged is a moment worth cherishing. A one-of-a-kind ring that you design at Blue Nile can help your love sparkle. Just choose your diamond and setting. When you've found the one, you'll get it delivered right to your door. Finding the right engagement ring can be nerve-wracking. At Blue Nile, you'll have the expert guidance needed and a diamond guarantee that ensures you're getting the highest quality at the best price. Cherish all of life's moments and save up to 30% at BlueNile.com. That's BlueNile.com.
Hey folks, this is Wolfie D here, and if you are looking to buy or sell a home in Tennessee or Southern Kentucky, you're going to want to call my buddy, the rock star realtor, Benji Bowie. And you say, Wolfie, how do I get in touch with this rock star? Well, you can call him directly at 615-390-8216. You can go to his website, bowiehomes.com. That's B-U-I-E homes.com. Or you can email him at benbowie34@gmail.com. When you need a home, you need the Rockstar Realtor.
Benji is a member of Exit Realty's Garden Gate team in Gallatin, Tennessee.
So, man, what you got going with shows and stuff? I know it's been a minute since you ran one that I can recall. What do you got going on with that? Anything?
Yeah, we actually have I'm doing a show that's going to be on Sunday, July the 9th on Beale Street. We're going to set a ring up in front of my dad's, bar and grill right there on Beale Street.
Yeah.
And just do one of those typical outdoor shows where you just have maybe like 4 matches or something like that. Nothing special, just a kind of a gimmick type thing. And all that. I actually tried to get, I was trying to get Honky Tonk Man to come and be a part of that, but he wasn't available. I wanted to bring him down and put him in the Memphis Hall of Fame thing and all that kind of stuff and everything, but he wasn't available at the time.
Yeah, cool. And so is that a Wildfire show? Or are you going to continue the Wildfire?
That'll be a Wildfire show, and still just trying to. My biggest thing is I just have zero interest in just running shows just to be running shows. I mean, there's so many guys, it's like they just, all they care about is just to be running shows. And it's like, my shows have so much more production and this and that. Right. They're so expensive to do that it's like, if I just can't do it the way I want to do it, then I have no interest in doing it. I don't care to run wrestling shows,
Right.
And, and there was a couple of things I was working on that just kind of fell through. That's still trying to work on. But like I said, I just want to make sure that it's the way I want them to be. Because like I said, I don't care to just be doing these shows that you can, the whole show will cost you $500 or something like that.
Yeah. Your shows the production has always been good on them. That's what I like about it, man.
Even back when I first, when I first ever even started promoting shows was like back in like late 1992, and I was like the first guy to start around here that would like just run some little spot show and give it some kind of a name or use any kind of like Jeff Jarrett used to always call me Vince back then, because they would come to my shows and I'd have a spotlight or some kind of something. I actually back in like Carruthersville, Missouri, man, they had just built this brand new recreation center, this big, huge thing with this, real elaborate, expensive, basketball court floor and all this kind of stuff, that kind of rubbery type stuff. They had never done anything there. The first thing they ever did was let us come and do a big wrestling show. And I had rigged up some kind of way to make it look like fireworks exploding in the air. It was basically just like taking like flash paper with this powder in it and hooking it to these wires and sticking it into like the sockets of an extension cord. And then when you plug it into the wall, it explode, And so we had some of these just hanging in the air, and literally I would just run and plug one in and run down and plug another one in and run down and plug another one. So like when my dad came out, it was like boom, 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 boom. It was like big fireworks going off in the sky, but it like rained down like this fire rained down, and it like singed. It looked like somebody just took a cigarette, just like stuck a button, like when you just like burn holes into like a couch or something with a cigarette. It was like all over the floor like that, and they just like banned ever having wrestling there again after that one show.
Damn, that's messed up. So let's talk about Brian for a minute, man. We all miss Brian, man. Brian touched a lot of people, and I miss him, man. I really do. Tell me, not Brian, the one that we all knew in the locker room and stuff. What was Brian, the big brother, like growing up?
Just like Brian in the locker room.
Really?
the same guy, But he was cool and all that kind of stuff. We just grew up together, both having that love for wrestling and all that kind of stuff. And just wanting to do that. But, gosh, man, that's just, again, one of those things that's kind of really hard to say, because it's just like, man, I don't know, it's just your brother or whoever. And it's just like, just typical, just like a typical brother, and all that. But he was just, how just super over competitive he was with everything. Was always like that, just as a kid, everything, no matter what it was, everything had to be a competition, and it's like, I really almost didn't even like to be around him or do stuff. Cause if we would just go to somebody's, you talk about Jerry Bryant, we would go, over to Jerry Bryant's house and go swimming and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And just, I mean, like, you couldn't even just go and just enjoy going and swimming. Like, everything has to be like, who can jump the farthest, who can, go the highest off the diving board, who can hold the breath the longest underwater. It's like, man, I just want to splash around or something. I don't want like the whole everything to be this big competition.
I can see,
but it was like, no matter what it was, everything had to be a nonstop. He's the best at whatever. He just had to constantly prove that he was just, could do anything faster, stronger, harder, better, whatever.
I can totally see that, man. I can totally see that. And listen, I want to ask you this question. If this is too much, we'll edit it out. I kind of just want to know what your feelings are on the whole jail thing. Like, what do you think happened, man? What's your honest opinion?
Man, it's one of those things where I could see it either way, because I mean, because that I bet there's probably not a single wrestler that has ever, lived that hasn't probably contemplated suicide. I think every wrestler has, or almost anybody in entertainment, and especially when you're in those situations, so. Yeah. Just, with everything he had going on in life, at the time. I mean, because if you think about it, that was that same year that he got into that big fight with Chase Stevens and had already been in jail and some other stuff. So he just had a lot going on. Yeah. But I mean, just under the circumstances, I mean, I could see it either way. And it's also one of those kind of things where, regardless, either outcome is not good. I mean, like, you hate to think about. If it was something that he did or if it happened to him, it's like, what, if you actually found out the truth, either way, they both suck, so it's kind of like, you don't really want to know that this way happened or that way happened. It's, in a way, it's almost like you'd rather it just kind of stay this mystery and you just, don't have to really just, think of it either way. But I was going to say, cause I mean, I think one of the biggest things about being in the business and this kind of stuff is that, man, you have these extreme highs and these extreme lows. The average person that just works a 9-to-5 job or does whatever, not to say that theirs is any easier, but their stress and their ups and downs are pretty basic. But it's one thing to, maybe say that you are flat broke or you're doing this whatever, but you can go to some little show and there's 500 people there or however many people, and they're all want to take your picture and shake your hand and get your autograph, and they're putting you over and they're kissing your ass, and then, so you're on this huge high, but then as soon as you leave there, you go, in some cases you go back to this reality of that, you're driving some piece of shit car, or you're flat broke or whatever, so, there's a lot of times where these guys, especially, after they've, if they're not, say, under contract somewhere or whatever, and they're back in that kind of situation, right? Where, man, you have these super highs and super lows, and that kind of stuff can really affect the brain more than just the average person. So, I mean, I can see, either way. Like I said, I mean, I definitely could see. Yeah, I'm not one of these kind of people that if that's what it came out to be, I would be in denial. I'd be like, oh, there's no way, Right. I mean, I definitely could be like, yeah, I mean, I could see it.
Yeah, I'm with you. That's kind of my feeling on it. I think it could have gone either way. But regardless, I like how you put that, though. Neither way is going to feel any better about it. Yeah, so thanks for answering that.
I got a great story about Brian. So I had a little toe tip in the business. I worked in Nashville as a manager. It's how I met Wolfie D originally. And Brian would come in and work at NWA Saw randomly. The houses were kind of low, so they bring in Brian to kind of pop the territorial or pop the area. I don't want to call it a territory, but you know what I mean. And he came in and he was talking and having a good time, and he was telling a story, and I was just kind of not eavesdropping. I was in the circle, but he was kind of telling a story, and he couldn't remember Jesse Barr's name, and he was trying to say Jimmy Jack, and I'm like, but he was something else, and I said it's Jesse Barr, and dude, after that, you would have thought we were best friends the entire night. He didn't even talk to anybody else at all, and I was just like, holy crap. I'm an admitted fan of the Lawler family. and to know that this dude is, I just kind of tried to stay quiet. If I wasn't talking to my immediate friends, I would just kind of stay quiet in there. And sure enough, Brian's talking my ear off. It was great. But anyway, so I've talked to Wolfie about this story, and I'm sure you're going to say the same thing. That was him. He had a magnetic charm about him,
Yeah. He could be like that,
Yeah. One thing I want to ask you, and this is kind of a patented question that my brother asks, and so it's the Plastic Chic patented Mount Rushmore of pro wrestling question. So I would love to know, you being, like I said, the son of one of the greatest of all time, I want to hear your Mount Rushmore of pro wrestling.
Ooh, wow. Gosh, I had told my dad one time that he should draw a Mount Rushmore thing of wrestling and do like several different versions of it, to where, because when you think about it, man, there's definitely like a Memphis Mount Rushmore and a whatever. Yeah. But gosh, just in general, when you can only have what is that, 4 guys or 5 guys or whatever that's on Mount Rushmore?
Yeah. Whatever you
you definitely have to say Hulk Hogan, and I would say you have to say Andre the Giant, and then after that,
do you put your dad on there?
Really, with the Jeopardy now?
Well, I personally would, but as far as
I think you hold back because it is your dad. I think you hold back.
Well, no, I just kind of look at it just more from this a national, audience, which and a lot more of them knowing him now, and that's one thing that always kind of bothered me is is that he's outlasted everybody really, and the WWE, they never really treated him on the same level that they always did the other legends. They always, really put Dusty over and really put Piper over and kissed all those guys' asses. And he's outlasted all of them, not only just still being alive, but still being in the ring and all that kind of stuff. I personally would huh?
I said, that's why you got to put him on there.
Yeah. That's what we want. We want your personal. You don't have to make a because I know there's that argument of okay, well, popular opinion, Stone Cold, Hulk Hogan, Andre, Undertaker, something like that. I want to know Kevin Lawler's personal. So,
oh man.
So Andre Hogan, you got 2 more.
Andre Hogan.
If it's my personal, I wouldn't put Andre on there as my personal. I would probably put. My personal would probably have Ultimate Warrior on there.
Okay.
The Road Warriors and
there you
stuff
go.
like that.
I love it.
Gosh. Yeah, I would put my dad on there. Not just because he's my dad at all, but really because, gosh, I really feel like he is the most realistic, wrestler ever. And I was just watching, somebody had just posted, and I was watching this video. It was that one Loser Leave Town match with him and Dundee. Mm-hmm. And it's his matches was like watching a Rocky movie back in the day. The punches, the bump. Everything was so believable because, he was one of the few guys, if not probably the only guy who, so many guys just take that same bump, Dundee always has that roll bump or Stan Lane, or so many guys just take a classic bump, and no matter what happens to them, they take that same bump. Right. To where my dad, his bump was based off what happened and how much impact was involved with what happened,
the physics of the fall.
Yeah. And it just made it seem so much more, real and things like that.
Yeah.
And I've heard a lot of guys like Raven and so many people who, will say, oh man, he's just the absolute, best there ever was. And I really, feel that way, despite him being my dad or anything like that. It's just, his just the whole body language of all of it, from a giving and receiving end is just so much more believable than, most guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
100%. And, Jimmy, before we wrap it up, man, you got any final questions for Kevin?
Well, obviously, we know that he just passed away yesterday. Did you ever have any run-ins when the Iron Sheik was in town? Did you ever? I know that was
no, because when I saw a thing, it's also one of those things where sometimes some of these guys will come in and they'll leave a huge impression and leave a big impact, and you think that they were here longer than they actually was.
Right, exactly.
And with Sheik, I feel like Sheik was, had a big run here, but it was like, I guess he was only here for a few months or something like that. And so again, that was like when I was just, a kid and not really getting to, just hang around and stuff like that. We would come in briefly. So, and then even after that, because I'm not one of these guys who gets to go and do appearances and this and that and whatever. So I don't think I've ever actually been around the Sheik or met him or anything like that. I have no memories of ever being around him that I can think of.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's crazy just to think in such a short span, and I had kind of forgot about it and then saw this today too, about how, Billy Graham had just recently passed and then, with Sheik and stuff like that, and all that. But yeah, it's crazy.
And then I think they said the Gambler too, right? I think I heard that.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know if I would, if he even really counts, but yeah, but that is crazy too. But, and I remember, he, that was kind of like this weird period when Jerry Jarrett was kind of like doing double duty with like WCW and WWF at the time, where, he was like, sending us like some of these, guys that they had, like, that's when we got like the Gambler and Gorgeous George the Third and like, Scotty Riggs, came in as like Scott Studd and stuff like that. Like, he was sending some guys here, but man, what's so crazy to think about is, like, man, we really just kind of missed it, by just a couple of years. It's like, when Power Pro was going on, that's when the Attitude Era was hitting, but, the Coliseum days was over with, so we didn't really get to kind of piggyback off that. But man, just think about how, man, they was sending like the Undertaker here, and he would go and work like Jonesboro and some of these places, and Randy Savage and Shawn Michaels, all these, like, Bret Hart and all these guys were like coming here. They actually sent Lex Luger and Yokozuna here to practice their match for SummerSlam.
Right.
So that they could at least kind of get it down. And, and Vince came and watched it and all that kind of stuff. But, man, it's just crazy to think if we could have, had those guys here when they were on that next level, like even the guys like Undertaker, people didn't look at Undertaker then like they do now. And, I think stuff like that could have kind of helped Memphis survive a little bit longer, man, if we could have, kind of had access to that when things just kind of hit that next level.
Yeah.
Man, I'll tell you something, and Jimmy, you probably can relate to this, like, being in some of these shows and having to, now it's different, when you play guys' music because, it's all digital now and people can do it on their laptops and stuff. But man, this is like back in the days when, man, and I used to would do the music for the guys. And this is back when, like, man, all you had was like cassette tapes. And a lot of times these guys would just travel with their tapes and they'd stay in their bags and they would get baby oil on them. And so sometimes like these tapes just wouldn't work or wouldn't play. But I mean, this is like one thing that's just kind of crazy to even think of. But I remember, like, when, one of the first times that they sent Undertaker in, like having to go and get asking for his music, and like Paul Bearer like gives you a cassette tape with Undertaker's music on it, to play. Like, it's just crazy to even think that, like, they would just travel around with like his music on a cassette tape.
One of my biggest pet peeves was the music guy who wouldn't make it a point to return your fucking tape to you at the end of the night, because I was notorious for leaving shit like that. But I always felt like, man, He's the music guy. That's his job, is to get this back to me, not at the end of the night, I got to go chase him down. Hey, you got my music. And then also, if you had somebody like a security person or whatever that would take your ring jackets and shit and then just go throw it fucking in the dark somewhere back behind the curtain and not bring it to where you were sitting. I mean, you got one job, bro.
Right. Yeah, and that was also back in the days when, like, man, you had no real way of like queuing stuff up or being able to check it out. Like, somebody would just give you a tape and want you to play some song, and then you'd have to somehow like just kind of search through this, this tape to find like the certain spot or whatever. It was a different time then trying to do that stuff and everything. And I remember even at the Coliseum, like, man, before we got it hooked up to where I could do the stuff down at the bottom, man, I used to have to take the tapes like all the way to the top of the Coliseum to this old guy, that would play them, and I had to walk all the way up those stairs, go to the very top, and then come all the way back down, get somebody else's music, go all the way back up there, and stuff like that. And man, it was crazy.
That's amazing.
I haven't thought about that in a long time, how much just something like that has changed, and it is so much easier because they've already usually got your music now. They're like,
and just think, man, now it's like, even if, you could just say, you could just name something and somebody can just pull it up. Back then it was like, man, sometimes you get there and guys wouldn't even have anything. They'd be like, hey, do you got such and such song? You'd be like, no, like, how would I have it? And you had no way to just pull something up on the fly, and just like, just grab it out of the air like you can now, and stuff like that. Yeah. Man, I wanted to ask you this, Wolfie, because I remember seeing this and I always thought, man, I wish I could get these guys up here and like shoot some kind of a video with you guys. But man, you remember how like at the ECW arena, like in the back, they had all these big giant props because that's where they would store all the old floats and stuff for like some big parade that they would do every year. Or like ever seeing some of that stuff back there?
I think I do. Yeah, possibly. I can't remember.
I just remember like, when I first, had moved up there and did all that, was in the arena in the back, they just had some of these props. And one of the things was like these just big giant, like, 12-foot tall, like speakers or something, and I thought, man, these would be cool to, just to have you guys like shoot some kind of a video in front of these big giant speakers and stuff like that. I don't know if you ever seeing that kind of stuff up there.
Who got you the gig up there? Eddie Gilbert probably, or who got you that for ECW?
Yeah, that was one of the things where, Eddie was going up there, to take over the booking and all that kind of stuff. And just, he knew that I had this passion and this love for doing stuff, and just knew there was nothing for me here, that, how they was around here, that I wasn't going to get to just do what I wanted to do. And
right.
Eddie was one of those kind of guys, that he would see something in somebody and want to, like, take them under his wing or whatever. And so, he gave me that opportunity, asked me if I wanted to go up there. And so, yeah, man, I jumped on it and moved up there, with them. It was like me and Eddie and Doug, shared an apartment up there. But the only thing that sucked is like, they would only run a show like once a month, and I'd get paid like $50, so I made $50 for the whole month. That's like all the money. So I'd be up there just broke, couldn't do nothing, man. And luckily there was like right across the street from us was like a Burger King and a Roy Rogers and maybe something else. And it wasn't for like, Doug buying my lunch every day, I would have survived, because I had no money and would be up there. And that was like such a culture shock. Cause like, I would just venture off and just go riding around and go somewhere and just not even think nothing of it. And I would just go to like a little Chinatown or something, and just park on the side of the road, go walk around, come back, my car would be gone. It just got towed all the way down to like the river or something. I'd be, oh crap. And I had to like, walk all the way down there and get my car back from being towed or something, not knowing how crazy the
$50.
$50.
Oh, brother.
Yeah. I remember one time being up there and just me and Paul Lee, it was just me and him was like riding around one night, just, driving all over the place, just, and we were just driving, and just all of a sudden out of nowhere, we come up on on the side of the road, just like a little cemetery. You see a bunch of, tombstones, all this kind of stuff. And Paulie looked at him and said, hey, look, Bill Dundee booked that town.
Oh my God.
And this was also back in the time. I remember, like, this was back when Paulie was still with WCW, and he had like that 900 number gimmick. Like, remember where you like that, like, pay X amount of dollars, like call the 900, like get these scoops or whatever. And I remember us driving around, literally like pull over on the side of the road and like one of the little crappy Chinatowns, and him getting out of the car and getting on a payphone so that he could record his 900 number, gimmick and everything.
So you just reminded me of something that you may know the answer to. We have a listener, Ben Martin, sent in a question. You remember the one I asked Randy? All right. So in September of 91, Jim Herd and WCW are in talks with Jerry Jarrett and Lawler about doing some business. Mainly Jarrett as a consultant, Lawler as talent to challenge Lex Luger to a title unification match. And the Memphis territory altogether would be a farm system for WCW, similar in the way they did with WWF in 92. Eddie Gilbert hears Herd is involved and decides to, through Paul Heyman, leak this information to Meltzer and Wade Keller, knowing that if it's reported, the whole deal will collapse. And it did. Eric Embry and Lawler fired Eddie for his involvement, and WCW, who were already investigating Paul's involvement in an airline ticket refund scam, suspends him. Have you ever heard that?
Yeah, I mean, I do know that is a true story, that did happen. I don't know a lot of the details on it, but I do remember when it went down and that that all that was planned and was supposed to happen and everything. And I remember, them being hot at Eddie about it and everything like that. And yeah, I mean, that's just how things was back then. That they just said, fuck it, just cancel the whole thing,
right.
Over the fact of it just kind of getting out.
Yeah. I mean, do you think that would have been good for Memphis, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, because I mean, that was during a time when, Memphis was in real bad shape, during that time. I mean, it kind of took another upswing, when guys like Brian started kind of coming up and PG and all those guys and stuff. But man, there was that little gap, from like.
Yeah.
The late 80s to like the early 90s that were like, man, yeah, it was in really, really bad shape.
That's cool. Thank you for answering that. Thanks, Ben, for asking the question. Ben's one.
Yeah, like I said, I don't know any real details on it, but I do know that is a true story, that whole situation did happen.
Wow. Okay.
Wolfie, do you remember this? I wanted to ask you this one time, but because you're always talking about like stories of people like pulling ribs and stuff, and this was like a rib that I did one time that kind of backfired, that I think, he got hot about and didn't really take it as a rib. But this was like during one of those times, like when Power Pro, when like, they had me doing like some managing stuff. And it was like one night we were doing a show at the New Daisy. And I don't remember who all was in the ring, but I just remember like, you was out there and I was managing. And man, I had discovered this stuff that is like this really super hot burning kind of stuff that was designed for like, if you had like a really bad toothache and you could put it on there, but it was like this, like a real strong, almost like a cinnamon type something. And there was like, so I had it with me and I kind of got some on my finger and like, I was supposed to be over there, like choking you or doing something. And I just kind of smeared it like all over your lips and everything. Cause man, it would just turn into like fire.
God.
And I remember you getting like real hot about it, but do you remember that?
Was this before Puerto Rico or after?
Right?
Was this before Puerto Rico or after?
The icy hot. No,
it wasn't icy, but yeah, it was just the stuff that I just did as a rib, like, because man, like once you get it on you, like, and then you're stuck out there in the ring, there's nothing you can do about it. It's not like you can like, drink something and wipe it off or whatever. You just gotta work with it.
I did.
That's hilarious.
That is good, man. Hey, and also I almost forgot to ask, and this is kind of important. You created a character, a pretty famous character in Memphis that was given to Glenn Jacobs, who went on to become Kane, as most people know. The Christmas Creature. Tell us the story of the Christmas Creature.
Oh yeah, the Christmas Creature. It's a funny thing because it was so short-lived, but it's just kind of taken on this cult following. It's just kind of like turned into something, because I've actually seen people make you know how you see people making these custom action figures and stuff. Like I've seen custom Christmas creature action figures, and I've seen like a video game version of them.
Oh, dude,
and everything. And I even the last time I saw Glenn, I told him, I said, man, you know, because he's the only one that would have the pull, the ability to make it happen. But I told him, I said, man, we need to do some Christmas creature, you know, merchandise, like, you know, something, you know, if he could get behind it, we actually could make it happen. But anyway, yeah, man, the story of it was, and it was only really supposed to just kind of be like a one and done, like a one shot thing, because it was like when I first started like promoting towns, like the first town I ever promoted was like in November of 1992. You know, because that was like the same year I graduated. Like as soon as I got out of school, you know, I was just ready to start doing something. And then December of 92, I ran Osceola, Arkansas. And man, we just had no hills at the time. I mean, the territory was just horrible. Like we had nothing, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't even remember who all was even here then, you know, but man, I mean, we just had nothing to book as like a main event, you know, for like my dad against somebody. You know, I've always been real big on gimmick stuff, and I kind of wanted to do like a Christmas themed show and stuff like that.
Right.
So I had just came up with this idea for this character, you know, and the whole idea of it was like, what if a Christmas tree somehow came to life and was a wrestler at the same time? It was kind of like the idea of it. And what happened is like, just, I don't know, gosh, maybe a month or so prior to that, or just a couple months for that, like Glenn came in and was teaming with some other guy, and they were just doing this tag team gimmick where they were wearing masks. They were just called like the Russian Unified Tag Champions, you know, they wore like these gold medals. And man, I mean, they were only in for like, it seemed like 3 weeks to a month or so. I mean, they just wasn't in long, didn't do anything. But I guess, kind of met him or got to know him or something. But I just remember, you know, telling my dad the idea, like at the Coliseum one Monday night, just saying, hey, I want to do a show and we just don't have anybody. And I had just came up with the idea. I can't even remember if I had already drawn, you know, had already just kind of sketched up the idea. I'm kind of thinking I might have, and I showed it to him, and he was like, yeah, I mean, that looks pretty cool, but like, who would you get to do it? You know, because you know, there's somebody else. I said, well, man, what about that one big guy, you know, Glenn, that was here and everything? And he's like, yeah, I guess. I mean, if they'll do it. And so I guess I must have got the number from him because, you know, I mean, that was like 92. I mean, that was really before cell phones or anything, really.
Oh, yeah.
And so he was living up in like, you know, some part of Missouri, like St. Louis or something. And heck, I mean, I think he might even still been living with his mother at the time or something, because I just remember having to, you know, call up there and talk to his mom and this, that, and the other. And heck, I don't even know if we even had fax machines or whatever back then, but I mean, I literally had to, you know, just, you know, come to find out his mother could sew a little bit, but like, I literally, like, you know, told him the idea, and he wasn't really doing anything at the time, and said, yeah, you know, he'd come do it. So I, like, you know, drew it and had like just stick it in the mail and like mail the picture up there and let his mom see it, and, you know, measure him and go, you know, and didn't even fit like spandex or nothing. She was like, she made this outfit out of like, I don't even know. I mean, it was just something, you know, because you could see, if you see that match with him, it's so restricting because it was almost like just this one piece bodysuit where if he tried to raise his arms, he couldn't raise his arms all the way up or whatever. And, but anyway, so, you know, she mailed the whole, she made the whole outfit, you know, and then mailed it to me. And then I had somebody else down here, like, add the lights and like the tinsel to it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then I just took, you know, the night of the show, you know, I took it to him and basically just like unveiled it in front of, like, I remember like my brother and all the Hills being in the dress room, like everybody kind of, you know, seeing me open the box and seeing it for the first time, and him, even Glenn, seeing it for the first time and having to put it on and everything. But the crazy thing about it is, because it was a Friday night, Osceola, Arkansas, and TV was the next day. And I had Jeff, on the show also. And just because of all those circumstances, Jarrett came and Eddie Martin was there because they just had to come in and was going to stay over and just be there for TV the next day. They normally would have never even done that.
Yeah.
And I guess just because we just had nothing going on at the time, and Jarrett came to the show and saw it and liked it and told him, asked him if he could be at TV, the next day. and then from there, he just really kind of got to, have maybe like a little 2 or 3 week run in Memphis just based off of them seeing this one shot deal that they all kind of took a liking to and just decided.
I remember the drawing, and I'm sure you probably still got it. Make sure Jimmy gets a picture of that. But did it not? If I remember correctly, did the suit not start falling apart on TV?
Well, the only thing that was started falling apart was like the garland, like the tinsel, like how you would, because that was like actual garland that I just went to like, well, because it was Christmas time, so I went and bought it, and they sewed it on there. That stuff is so fragile anyway. So like when you see him trying to step in and out of the ring over the ropes, it's just it's hitting the ropes and falling off and everything. And the crazy thing was like even when I was making the poster for the show, I didn't even have a picture of the character, so I actually had to draw a picture of him and have a picture, like an actual picture of my dad, and then versus this drawing of the Christmas creature that I had put on there, But I guess maybe the town drew, so I guess it was just maybe the intrigue of what the character looked like and everything.
I bet they thought, could it be Sid or somebody like that?
Yeah, and that was the thing that that's how my dad actually kind of put it over on TV, was that since they were going to wrestle each other that Monday night, he put it over I think that's somebody from the WWF, and he just really kind of teased and I think he even said Sid or something like that, just to try to make the people think that it was Sid, under the mask and all that kind of stuff, But I want to try to check with this one guy who makes these custom pops for my dad, and maybe try to, at least, if nothing else, do some of those Christmas creature pops, or even some of those, what's those gimmicks called that you just recently had, the slam buddies, maybe do some Christmas creature slam buddies or something.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
Christmas creature, like you said, it'll forever go down in Memphis history is like a cult type thing. It was cool. But yes, I totally remember that picture. And if you can get that to Jimmy, that'd be awesome. But yeah, I had to make sure we talked about that, man. That's a good story. And I'm sure a lot of the listeners remember the Christmas creature. It's just funny that, because Glenn went through so much stuff before he, finally found his niche and became what he became, the Christmas creature. You got the Doomsday,
he was a fake Diesel,
Yeah, fake Diesel, Isaac Yankel. I mean, just shit that just could have killed his fucking career.
And I can't remember if he ever actually came in and did a couple of shots as Isaac Yankel. It seems like he would have, since he was like my dad's dentist. But he was here as Christmas creature, here as the fake Diesel, here as Doomsday. He was here as everything, for the most part.
Yeah. He sure was. What a good guy, man. All right, that's a great story, Kev, man. And there's so much more. We'll just have to bring you back for a part 2 one day. I appreciate you coming on, man. Do you got anything at the last here? Do you want to plug anything or?
No, I mean, not really. Like I said, I just have this event coming up Sunday, July the 9th. Yeah. It's the Downtown Meltdown. It's Wildfire Wrestling is going to do an event, at Jerry Lawler's Hall of Fame Bar and Grill on Beale Street.
We definitely have a lot of Memphis area listeners, so I'm sure they'll come out for that. Lawler's Bar and Grill. But again, thanks, Kevin, for coming on. And man, maybe we'll have you on again sometime. Maybe do a watch along on the Bumblebee versus Wolfie D or something like that, man.
All right.
But yeah, and send our best to your dad and the best to you, and I hope everything's going well for you. And Jimmy, when we come back from this break and we say goodbye to Kevin, we're coming back with what?
Can you believe it, Kevin? Ask Wolfie D Anything. We're actually going to take questions and have Wolfie tell the whole story on everything.
Oh, wow.
So thanks again, Kevin, and everybody will be back with Ask Wolfie Anything.
All right, man. See you guys.
Thank you so much, Kevin. Really good to meet you. Thank you, brother.
All right, man. You too.
DJ, hit the music. All right, we are back with a little Ask Wolfie D Anything today. And I tell you what, what a great episode with Kevin, dude. I'm sad to say I've never met Kevin. I feel like I know a lot about him now, and what a just cool dude, man. What a really cool dude.
Cool, man. Like we said, I've known him for a long time, known the dynamic of the family. And so it's good to have him on and let him tell his side of things. He, like we said, we know Lawler's story, we know Brian's story, but a lot of people don't know Kevin's story. So I hope we were able to, give that to everybody that didn't know, or the ones that already knew Kevin. I hope you enjoyed the show.
Yeah, absolutely.
What you going to ask me?
Yeah, well, we got some Ask Wolfie here. So with that being said, let's start this part with M.N. Thompson on Facebook. He's Memphis Wrestling is the page. And so the question is if you knew then what you know now, what's one thing that stands out in your mind that, man, I wish I had done this or that?
I wish that around, when we had our Nation of Domination run, I wish I would have taken shit more seriously. I wish I would have been in the gym all the time and, been ready for what could have been next. And I just think that we did not take advantage of that. And I honestly believe that, there was going to be something for us. I don't know what, I thought about this the other day. I don't think I've ever really talked about this part of it, was that, when we did the deal where we walked out on the Road Warriors and then we came back in, Sean and JR promised us, we get paid for the next month or whatever. Then there was talk of, we'll bring you out. We're fixing to do this lightweight tournament, blah, 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 blah. We'll bring you guys in for that. But they never did. So our actions, I think, maybe that was the plan. Maybe they were going to do something with us there. Probably, break us up, maybe, whatever.
Yeah.
But it could have been the start of something. And like I said, I've been the first one to tell everybody, I didn't handle things real well back then, man. I was just playing around, just having fun. Thought it wasn't going to end, and party time. But anyway.
Yeah. And you know what? How old were you then?
About, let's see, 22, 23, something like that.
Seriously. I mean, some might say you reached the pinnacle there, and you were, it's kind of understandable in a long run. Cause I remember when I was 22, I was a complete dumbass. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, when it comes down to it, bro, I get what you're saying. Yes, I wish, but at the same time, man, that's a lot to put on a 22-year-old's shoulders. And I know that Jamie gets a lot of, sometimes people are oftentimes will say like, well, you were with Jamie and Jamie had his own things, but man, it's okay to say that, you've admitted several times that you made mistakes too. Yeah. And it's understandable, but man, I get what you're saying though. That's definitely something. I do personally think there was a lot left for the WWE and PG-13 that was just not available or just not put out there. But I really feel like there was a good run with you all, and I just see the teams that came later, the wrestlers that came later. Would it have been a single deal with just you? Would it have been whatever? I clearly see all that. Now I don't want to beat a dead horse, but obviously I'm a PG-13 mark, so when it comes down to it, would have loved to have seen a longer run there with a wrestling PG-13,
right?
Because I and I know that's kind of, I hear you when you people talk about it like, yeah, we were there together at WrestleMania 13, and you walk out and you see that, yeah, they're walking to the ring to wrestle. You're walking to the ring to be a manager, essentially. Yeah. And you know, at the same time, when it comes down to it, you were there though. So can't take that from anything, you know. So, but anyway, that's a good answer. You know, no need to go over it a million times, but you know, one thing that I would say that I wish you would have done is I wish when we met that you would have said, Jimmy, I'm in it for a long heel run. I need a good manager. Let's hit the road. Why did you not ask me? No, I'm just kidding. But anyway,
I didn't need a Middle Eastern manager at the time.
No. This is after that guy. We'll talk about Jimmy Street, not Omar. But I get that. Nobody needed a Middle Eastern white guy. So anyway, but yeah, that's my regret is we didn't take it on the road at that time, or we didn't start this podcast then.
Because it wasn't a thing, was it?
Well, you know what's funny is there was like 2 or 3. It was like Stone Cold, Colt Cabana, and basically Gene Jackson. I swear to God. Gene is, you know, Gene's been doing it since 2010. I think. And I don't even know why he still does it, because that just shows you, I mean, I know why he still does it. What I'm saying is that shows you how much he loves it. So anyway, he's OG for sure. But okay, our next question is from Ben Martin on Facebook, and it's this one. This is an interesting one. So Bill and Jamie's promo in 96 about the injunction on the Wolfie name and trademark for the hubcap and gear. Do you remember that?
Did they burn it or something?
Yeah. And then did you all then or now ever think of having your names and likenesses trademarked?
No, I never thought of it, honestly. It kind of wasn't a thing back then, you know. Now people are doing it.
Yeah.
Many people really did it back then. But, you know, it's funny. Again, we talk about, you know, people that went to WWE, like right after we you know, were let go there, and like, oh, can we call y'all JC Ice and Wolfie D PG-13? Vince owns that now, right? No.
You better not.
Think about it.
Yeah.
Because that was happening to everybody, but it's because we had our character before we got there, and again, it didn't have names on the contract. I was the one that put the names in the rap to make sure you knew who we were.
Sure.
So no, he never owned it. We went to WCW. We used the names there. You know, so it was kind of cool that, you know, when people make the jump, they got to switch their name and shit. We never had to, no matter where we went.
Yeah. And I mean, even
nobody
the biggest
ever owned it.
Yeah, even the biggest dudes like Ron Simmons had to change his name. You know what I mean? And I mean, some absolute legends went to WWE and had their name changed. So, you know, that's really cool. You wrote it in the rap.
Yeah, I just put the names when I wrote the rap. That they heard our name. I don't know if I did that honestly, subconsciously. I don't know that I went, oh, I better put my name in here. You know what I'm saying? But it was just a subconscious me being a showman, you know what I'm saying?
Of course. I mean, if you're not gonna, they're obviously not calling you JC Ice and Wolfie D. They're not even saying your names. They're basically saying, oh, there's those two. What are they up to?
Those thugs.
Yeah, those thugs. Yeah. And you're coming out there and you're like, well, at least in the song, they're gonna know our names. So it's smart. You took an opportunity and you ran with it. So there's nothing wrong with that. So basically it's popular now. I think CM Punk might have been like the first one to have started the current trend of having your name trademarked before you get there. And then of course they have to either say, okay, you're not that, or you're going to sign over some of the rights to your name while you're here. You know, but anyway. I saw
recently where Double J is trying to either trademark or copyright something like the word heat or something like that. I swear something really strange, and I'm thinking, okay, you not see that?
No, I haven't seen that, but they're copywriting everything right now, bro. Phrases,
the word, but I swear to God, it was something like heat or something. I was like, huh?
Yeah. So what's funny is the trademark attorney that does it for everyone. He's out of Florida, I think. He actually follows us on Twitter. So I hope he's a listener. But anyway, I don't know if he was just, following us because of you or if it was because it was a you and a podcast or whatever. But it's funny because he actually followed us. And long story short on that is, we own Live and in Color with Wolfie D. We've got everything trademarked now. We own that. But anyway, that you have to do that these days. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, well, that's a good question, Ben. Thank you always, Ben Martin from Facebook. And then again, Ben's got another question here. And it's, have you ever get an ECW bounced check or anywhere, stiffed anywhere? So basically, tell us. So I think the bounce checks came after you all were there, right?
No, I think they was bouncing while we was there, but I never did.
Okay.
Say that. Man, I've told you before, we had to wait sometimes. We had to play the waiting game. They tried to wait you out, man. It'd be fucking 2:00 in the morning and shit. And
right.
Paul would be still up in the office, calling separate people at a time or whatever. And we just kept waiting. We're not leaving until we got sex. So
we
did that more than once. But we got it. It always was right. Have I ever been stiffed? I think we talked about this before. I followed, or maybe I did this on Facebook. I did follow, and Mitch was a friend of mine, man. Mitch Rhodes, Mitch Ryder. He ran a show, and me and Josephus had went up for it up in Indiana. And Mitch tried to, brother, I ain't got it all, man. I'm gonna have to give you this, and then give you some more later. And I said, nope. And he didn't. I don't think he gave Josephus anything. I said, bro, this ain't working, man. I said, you're gonna have to figure out a way to get my money to me right now. Man, brother, I don't have no way. So you better start asking motherfuckers, because I ain't fucking playing, bro. And so he. Well, let me go to my grandma's house. I said, I'll follow you there. Dude. And so we got in the car, followed him, me and Josephus and his ex, and followed him to his house. And I made sure he paid me, and he did.
Man, wow.
Go after it.
Yeah. No.
Shorted before, because I've been bad, and being the era that I was in, you'd think I wasn't like this. But, a lot of times I'll take the envelope or take the little kayfabe rolled up wad of money and not pull it out right there and count it. And so I've been shorted before and after the fact. And, sometimes I'd probably just be like, it depended on what the payoff was,
Sure.
But, he shorted me $50, no big deal, depending on what my payoff was again.
Sure.
But,
sure.
It happens.
Yeah, and that has to happen. I
think of, okay, I swear, I'm probably one of the nicer ones when it comes to it, because, if he does short me, okay, well, I did pretty good on gimmicks, so I ain't gonna fuck with him. You know what I mean? Sure. Well,
I've known of guys that have, they get there, they get paid immediately.
Yeah.
Like, when I'm here now, and that's a lot of your older dudes that are old school carny guys, but they're like, pay me and then I'll do it,
If I walk in and somebody pays me immediately, they got my respect.
Yeah. And that's, that's honorable for sure. But at the same time, when it comes down to it, a lot of them have to wait for the door,
Yeah, but so that's how you don't run shows. You don't run shows based
off the door.
I hope I make enough off this door to pay everybody. That's why.
Right.
Sponsors or you just need your own money so that you got all the money you need to cover everything, no matter whether one motherfucker shows up or not.
Yeah. And that's running a promotion 101, y'all.
Yeah.
If you ain't got the money, don't do it. It's just not, that's a good question too, actually. So with the guys that kind of are that way, that come in, and is there an interesting story where you've seen people throw a fit because they didn't get paid immediately?
I don't know that I've seen a fit over not getting paid immediately. No, I've seen people get shorted and be mad, and I've never been on the ones where the promoter runs out the back door, but I've heard of a few of those. You know, Tommy Doug went to jail over that one time. I forget how the story goes, but they were somewhere in Virginia, and the guy tried to stiff them, and I think they walked out and took the gate, like the box. The person at the front door had. The police was on him real quick. I think we put him in jail for the night.
Man.
Be good to have them on here and tell that story, but because I can't remember all the details. But yeah, there was something like that. But
you know,
I remember. I don't know that they really got in trouble because the guy owed them the money, but I don't think you could just take the gate
because that could be a whole lot more than what you were supposed to get paid, or very similar. But yeah, they should come on here and tell that story. I think that's a great idea. But you know who we got next week is an awesome tag team. I'm very excited about this one. Tell them who we got next week.
The Wild Boys, Columbia, Shelbyville, all the southern Tennessee, northern Alabama. They were really hot in the 90s, early 90s, mid 90s, in the outlaw territory. That was kind of the Tennessee territory almost for the outlaw circuit. Most of the same guys wrestled on all those shows.
Yeah.
They packed some of those houses, man. They really did. Good guys. If I'm not mistaken, was trained by Bill Dundee. I'm not sure who trained Steve, but we'll get into all that with him. But yeah, man, good tag team. Looking forward to having them on, man. Some good guys.
Absolutely. It was an exciting opportunity, and we decided to reach out to them, and man, they were on board for sure. The thing I thought about it is our 100th episode next week, bro. So y'all, some say it's a miracle, but I have helped or made Wolfie D have 100 episodes. Some say it wouldn't last, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, thank y'all so much for sticking around and letting us have 100 episodes, because literally, like Wolfie says all the time, without y'all listening, we don't want to do it, so means the world. And why not have the Wild Boys on your 100th episode? That sounds like a party to me, man. So
all those shows, all those towns, man, that's where I got my start too. So I can relate to all the areas and the people they worked to. My stepdad and Mephisto and Dante and Chris Champion and all those guys, man.
Yeah. Yeah, Dale Storm. They probably worked for Dale Storm, and I'm sure they did. But anyway, long story short, I'm excited for the Wild Boys, and y'all just look up them on, Brian Turner's VHS Rehab. Look up that on YouTube and type in the Wild Boys, or just type in Ben Jordan, Steve Neely, whatever. Yeah. Great run, and we're excited to have them. So first of all, thank you, Wolfie, for sticking around for 100 episodes. So I'm excited. This one's 99.
This is 99. I was gonna say, don't count your chickens for their hatch.
That's a good point. That's a great.
Got a whole week to fuck this up. Come on. All right, dude. All right, well, man. Again, we appreciate everybody listening, and like Jimmy just said, tune in next week. We should have the Wild Boys on. So
yeah.
Tune in next week, y'all. Thanks.
And now a word from our sponsor.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling, the podcast that's based on the old school but can still help you find the good stuff from today. Jimmy Street and the Plastic Chic, Jared, are the undisputed tag team champions of the wrestling podcast world. From thought-provoking topics to superstar interviews to action figure expertise. This team does it all. And all they ask is, give me back my pro wrestling. Every other Thursday, wherever you listen to podcasts.
That's right, it's the talk of Middle Tennessee, the channel you love to hate and the channel you hate to love. It's Brian Turner from Brian Turner's VHS Rehab. And if you're looking for matches from Wolfie D to Jerry Lawler to Dusty Rhodes, and the team that put a pimp before your eyes and a goatee between your thighs, Booty Call and Athena, go to lostwrestling.com. See, I made it easy for you. Brian Turner's VHS Rehab. Booyah.
Hey everyone, this is Shane from Insane Shane's World. I release wrestling figures of enhancement talent, mid-card wrestlers, and wrestlers that you never thought would have a figure available. So if you're interested in adding a really cool and rare figure to your collection, then don't hesitate to contact me at shamtheman73@gmail.com. That's SHAMtheman73@gmail.com. You can also join my Facebook group. Just search Insane Shane's World.
Join me, Gene Jackson, for the Jackson Interaction Podcast, where I'll be doing one-on-one interviews with people from the world of professional wrestling, as well as stand-up comedy. You can get them anywhere podcasts are available in both video and audio form, but you can find them all at GeneJacksonPod.com.
This is the Big Picture, Michael Jablonski. Don't forget to tune in every week to Jablonski's Pissed Off on the Mike Jablonski's Pissed Off YouTube channel.
What's wrong in this sport? He's gonna tell you all about it. He doesn't care what you think. You're gonna hear all about it. Mike Jablonski. He's so pissed off. Mike Jablonski. He's so pissed off. Mike Jablonski. He's so pissed off. He's pissed off.
If you're a fan of rock music, I'd really appreciate it if you took a moment to check out my podcast. It's called the Decibel Geek Podcast. We've been doing it for about 10 years now. We talk about Kiss. We talk about Ozzy. We talk about Motley Crue and Guns N' Roses and Metallica. We talk about all the legends from the 60s and on, up to brand new bands that you should be hearing about today that you're not going to hear on the radio. It's Decibel Geek. Wherever you find your podcasts, you'll find us there. If you love rock and roll, I can almost guarantee you're going to love my show.
So that was another great episode. Hey, Wolfie, tell them where they can find you on social media.
Jimmy, they can find me in the club, bottle full of bub. I'm just kidding. They can find me on Facebook. My personal page is Warren Wolf, WOLFE. I'm on Instagram at Warren Wolf 13.
You can always find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at Live Wolfie D. Here's the thing. Wolfie always has offers for his autographed photos. He has a selection of some awesome photos from throughout his career that he will autograph and personalize any way that you want him to. Just contact him either directly at his personal Facebook page or through any one of our other pages, and we'll make sure you get in contact directly with Wolfie. Get those photos, right, Wolfie?
Yeah, I've got some good stuff on there, to help with the podcast.
Folks, if you can't get out to a show to meet Wolfie D, there's nothing like that, especially for the fans of PG-13 and Wolfie D. And before we go, you can always find me, your host, Jimmy Street, at James Rock Street on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube.
And hey, Jimmy, before we go real quick, I just want to add in there, from the bottom of my heart, I really appreciate, first of all, the work you've done for this podcast. You have worked your butt off. Secondly, the people that are liking the page. Beyond that, even more, is the people that are listening, and we really appreciate that.
Yeah, and remember, guys, the podcast drops a new episode every Monday at noon, and our past episodes are streaming now on demand on all major podcast formats. Thanks again.
I got a cat for you, don't. He got a cat for you, don't. I got a cat for you, don't. He got a cat for you, don't. He got a cat for you, don't. And here we go, the original white boy that came out sagging, not bragging, don't be hating, cause I'm spitting the truth, still livin' in color, from Rush your mother, utilize a hubcap, unlike any other. Back in the day, I was N-O-D, and I was P to the G, plus the 1 and the 3, in case you forgot, they call me Wolfie D, been cloned and copied so many times, tired of suckers taking credit for what is mine. You know who you are without me name dropping. Wrestling's first white boy coming out hip hop. Been doing it like this since '92. Laid low for a while and you thought I was through. Listen real close to these rhymes that I've injected. This shit's so sick it makes makes your ears get infected. Mad skills, no faking, there is no one great. Cause I'm bringing more folks than Obi-Wan or Vader. Not here to play games, so you better beware. You don't like me, so what? I really don't care. Like time I keep ticking and I can't be stopped. You sucker step to the side unless you wanna get dropped. With my finish, I'll straight knock you out. Please allow me to tell you what it's all about. I'm gonna wind it up, then I'm driving it home. It's Wolfie D, baby. I got a cap for your dome. I got a cap for your dome. We got a cap for your dome. We got a cap for your dome.
This has been a James Rock Street production.